Something special arrived in the mail today. These are cocoa pods, and you already know what I'm going to be making out of these. But if you don't, it's chocolate. I'm going to be making chocolate. Anyways, the first thing to do is to crack these open and scoop out all the beans inside. They're pretty gooey and kind of smell like fresh sashimi to me, which I know is weird. Once I scoop out all the beans, I'm throwing them into a clean jar because we need to ferment these before we can turn them into chocolate. I don't want to create an airtight seal, so I'm just going to lay some kitchen towel, then place the lid over top. Then this is going into my dehydrator, which can hold this around 30 degrees Celsius to imitate tropical temperatures. This will need to ferment for about a week, and I'll be breaking this down into multiple parts, so make sure you're following to keep up.
I fucked up. The cacao beans have gone moldy, and I know why. It's because I didn't drain the liquid or put them in a container that had drainage, which means they're scrapped. However, I have ordered more, and they should be arriving soon. So you might have to wait a little bit more than 1 week. But we always learn from our failures, so we're going to come back, we're going to do it again. Hopefully not mess it up the second time and make some delicious homemade chocolate.
And we're back again with another couple cocoa pods. I messed up last time, so we're going to try it again. I'm going to crack the pods open and wiggle around because it looks funny, then scoop out all the beans inside. A lot of people were saying I should taste the flesh, so here we go. It's pretty tasty and kind of reminds me of mangosteen. Okay, anyways. This time I'm switching up my fermentation method. I have a glass mixing bowl with a sieve to allow drainage. Then I'm covering with a clean tea towel. Then instead of putting it in the dehydrator, I'm going to place it on a heat mat. I'm going to give these a mix every so often for the first few days, and I'll be posting daily updates on how it's going starting tomorrow. This is the day 1 of fermenting chocolate update. So far, not much has changed visually, but there is quite a bit of liquid that has drained out the bottom. The smell's starting to become a little bit alcoholic, which is a sign of fermentation happening. I'm going to give this a little mix, cover it up, and then this time I'm going to throw it into the dehydrator to keep it a little warmer. Stay tuned for more updates to come. We're on day 2 of fermenting cocoa beans into chocolate. Again, visually not much is different, other than the beans being a little drier. The smell of fermentation is much stronger now, giving off a much stronger alcoholic funk. We're going to give this another mix, spread it out a bit, and then this time I'm going to replace the cover with cheesecloth to allow a little more airflow. Then it's back in the dehydrator, so follow along for more updates. Congratulations, you've made it to day 3 of fermenting cocoa beans into chocolate. Today's the first day where there's a clear visual difference. The pulp surrounding the beans is starting to darken. The funky alcohol smell is also starting to mellow out a little bit too. For the last few days of fermenting though, I'm going to switch things up a little bit and move this into a smaller glass jar. I'm going to cover the surface of the beans with cheesecloth, then cover the jar with kitchen towel to prevent too much drying out. I'm also going to increase the temperature of the dehydrator to just over 40 degrees Celsius to hopefully simulate the last steps of cocoa bean fermentation. Make sure you're following along to see how this goes for the last few days. You've made it to day 4 of fermenting cocoa into chocolate. After we swapped the fermenting vessel and increased the temperature yesterday, there's a big visual difference in the beans. The smell is also starting to become a little bit acidic, and I think this is almost done. But I'm going to let it go 1 more day. So back in the dehydrator it goes with the exact same parameters, so follow along for the final steps coming soon. We're finally ready to turn these cocoa beans into a finished chocolate bar. The beans have been drying overnight in my dehydrator, and then I roasted them in the oven at about 140 degrees Celsius for about 40 minutes. Once roasted, I let them cool off and then I peeled the shells off of all the beans. For the best chocolate, you usually want to use a wet mill, however I don't have the money to spend on that at the moment, so I'm going to use a blender to grind the beans. I got them as fine as this blender would go, and then added powdered sugar and some melted cocoa butter too. I blended again, and then I poured it out into some chocolate molds, threw it in the fridge to solidify, and then here is the final chocolate bar. First impressions are that this bar is a little gritty, but that was expected. However, the flavor is not like any other chocolate I've tasted. It's got that classic chocolate flavor, but it has a much more fruity and floral taste to it. If cocoa pods were cheaper and easier to get for me, I could definitely see myself doing this more often.